So President Yoon's legal troubles are far from over, with insurrection charges closing in on the South Korean leader. Was his martial law order a pure act of governance or a clear act of insurrection? Let's turn to lawyer Kim Jisu. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's start with the hot potato here. What President Yoon is arguing is that his order is not subject to judicial review, like the exercise of diplomatic power. Can this argument be justified as he insists?
Well, first, President Yoon's argument is very controversial. First of all, governing acts can be exempt from judicial review, and similar claims in history like financial real name reforms or troop deployment to Iraq were upheld as governing acts. However, they are not exempt from judicial review if they violate basic rights or constitutional principles. For example, there are past cases of Park Chung-hee's emergency measures, which is also known as 긴급조치권, in the 1970s, and it was ruled unconstitutional despite being labeled as governing acts because it was considered it infringed on fundamental rights. So the Constitution strictly regulates martial law and requires specific conditions such as rebellion or war. And while Yoon accused the opposition of paralyzing the parliament and stating functions through repeated impeachment attempts and legislative manipulation, such parliamentary challenges like budget cuts don't quite meet this criteria. So it seems that as a conclusion, Yoon's justification seems more political than legal, and it is unlikely to stand scrutiny given the lack of extreme emergency, which is considered to breach the Constitution.
Well, when talking about the night of the martial law order, we have to talk about the martial troop deployment, which is another significant part of his argument that a small number of martial law troops were deployed to maintain the order at the parliament. What he's saying is that it wasn't a riot. What makes such deployment a necessary order? I'm asking if there are any legal guidelines.
So first, we need to understand what martial law is capable of. South Korea's constitution allows martial law when regular public forces like police can control the severity of the unrest. And there is also a Article 77 from our constitution stating that the martial law grants the military to take over executive and administration to maintain security. However, at the same time, it also states that the martial law requires either a warlike situation or public unrest beyond public control. So martial law has its strong legal boundaries due to its severity of the impact. And we would like to consider that, was there a warlike situation right now? Deploying troops requires a severe unrest, like at the brink of the war or a situation of rebel. And President Yoon's reasoning, so-called opposition budget actions and political disputes, doesn't meet these thresholds. So in conclusion, it is unarguable to state that military deployment was a last resort, not a tool for resolving political gridlock. So no matter how a small number it was, using military force to interfere with parliament was definitely an abuse of power.
Well, I do have to add that testimonies from military officers are that President Yoon ordered them to drag people out from inside the parliament. Now, the testimonies will also make the judgment quite complicated, won't they?
Yes, these testimonies add real complexity to the situation here. As mentioned before, even under the guise of maintaining order, the martial law does not allow actions that undermine democratic institutions, and blocking parliament or preventing lawmakers from gathering violates the very principles of civilian control over the military and the constitution. And there was also a past rulings like those on Chun Do-hwan's coup, which clearly stated that disrupting constitutional governance was illegal and punishable. So the Constitutional Court will decide if its actions were constitutional, and they will examine whether the martial law violated democratic principles or disrupted parliament. And if Yoon directly ordered arrests or removals, it could be the definite evidence of insurrection. However, right now, there's only testimonies, so investigators need solid proof like phone records or direct orders to resolve the situation.
Right, collecting meaningful evidence will be will play as a crucial factor here. Then let's say the vote is passed tonight and then the case goes to the Constitutional Court. I hear the Constitutional Court has 180 days to deliberate and rule on Yoon's future. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And let's break down the Constitutional Act by one. So under Article 38 of the Constitutional Court Act, the court must issue a ruling within 180 days from the date the case is filed. And this is the maximum period, ensuring cases don't drag on indefinitely. But cases often conclude faster depending on their urgency and complexity. And if key witnesses are absent or evidence gathering becomes complex, the delays can also occur. There is also an Article 52 that allows rescheduling if a party fails to attend hearings. So as a conclusion, impeachment cases are usually expedited due to their national importance. However, the court's reduced number of justices could extend the timeline for right now, and President Yoon's declared intent to fight the process could also complicate the proceedings. So while the 180-day rule is firm, it seems that nothing is guaranteed for it right now.
Right, I asked that because I remember it didn't even take 100 days for former presidents Park Geun-hye and Roh Moo-hyun, right?
Yes, definitely. The impeachment of Park Geun-hye and Roh Moo-hyun took less than 100 days due to the differences in political and legal circumstances. While 6 months is the limit, past cases like Park Geun-hye's impeachment in 2016 took only about 91 days, and Roh Moo-hyun's was only resolved in just 63 days. So for Roh Moo-hyun cases, his impeachment was politically driven, centered on 3 charges, including election law violations, and the case only focused it on fewer and simpler charges and didn't involve confirmed criminal accusations, which led the opposition quickly aligned, leading to a swift process. And for Park Geun-hye's cases, she faced strong public and parliamentary consensus over her corruption and abuse of power. And due to the severity of the allegations and massive public protests, it expedited the court's decision to impeach her.
Right,
So
they are vastly different cases.
yes, and lastly, for Yoon's cases, on the legal perspective, he's quite mixed. The accusations, including 22 constitutional and legal violations, resemble the complexity of Park Geun-hye's. However, the nature of his martial law declaration echoes the less straightforward aspects of President No. So as a conclusion, Yoon case might follow a similar timeline to previous 2 cases, which is around 2 months. And as the procedural framework and criteria for impeachment are already well established, it could end sooner.
Well, watchers say that the process leading up to the verdict could be quite a journey. One, because of how complicated the case is, and 2, because it's not 1 or 2 people involved in the case, right?
That is correct. The case isn't just about Yoon. It involves a large network of individuals across different branches of power, a high-ranking officials from military, police, and government ministries. So there are 3 main key figures in this incident. So first, Yoon is accused of being the final authority behind the martial law declaration, definitely. And there is a former defense minister, Kim Yong-hun, and Army Chief of Staff Park An-soo and other senior military commanders are also implicated in these allegations. And there are multiple commanders in military involvement and also cabinet members such as senior government officials, including the ministers of Justice and Interior, are also facing accusations of aiding and abetting martial law enforcement. So as a conclusion, the sheer number of key figures and witnesses will make the investigation and trial more time-consuming and last-longing.
Definitely. Already, thank you so much for your time and your insight this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.